The podcast you're about to hear is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Howdy, partner, and welcome to TomHanksgiving, the only hipster freebird cop Tom Hanks podcast. I'm your host, Elvis, and today I'm joined by
Melvin Benson.
Mr. Melvin Benson of Good Cop, Bitch Cop, and Police Navidad fame.
Hello there.
How's it going?
Not too bad, man.
All right, what else is going on with you?
Hanging out, making shorts, doing the film thing.
This guy is one of the greatest producers I've ever worked with.
Hey,
and he is here to talk about Mr. Tom Hanks.
Mr. Tommy Hanks.
Specifically, the 1987 film Dragnet.
Yes.
Which stars Dan Aykroyd, co-stars Tom Hanks. This is before he was super big, headlining movies.
Did not get top billing this time.
Yeah, he has had top billings. This is after The Money Pit. This is after Splash. But this is before Big.
Right.
Before he had his humongous splash at the box office,
I like
if
these
you will.
Puns are fun.
Puns are so much fun. This was directed by Tom Mankiewicz, who did a handful of things, but this seems to be his most notable directorial debut. Written by Dan Aykroyd and a little bit of Tom Mankiewicz, the director, and Alan Zwiebel. And of course, based on the original radio and television series Dragnet.
That's right, very popular series. My dad loves it. I've seen a couple.
That's good. I haven't seen any of the original show. I'm going to say that up front. I am strictly going to be talking about the movie.
You know, it was not necessary to enjoy this movie. You didn't have to see it.
No, it stands on its own. There's a nice little bit of, obviously it says the same style, and there's a nice little bit of world building to how this fits into the original show's canon, if you want to go down that road. But yeah, let me start off here with this. What's this on Rotten Tomatoes? It's 46% critic rating, 42% audience score. So not one of the more popular Hanks films, but maybe that's more Aykroyd's fault. But the movie starts, and I'll just briefly talk about the first shot. Pretty simple. It's an aerial footage of the Los Angeles skyline, if you can actually claim that we have one of those.
Yeah, sometimes you can make it out through all the smog and fog.
Yeah, but it's nothing like a Chicago or a New York or even a Seattle for that matter.
Seattle sometimes is pretty nice.
I think we're pretty much manufacturing anytime we have a city skyline in anything you've ever seen.
A lot of composite shots.
Because they always want to put the Hollywood sign next to it, and that's nowhere near any skyscrapers.
How do you pull a car up within 10 feet? Crazy.
Yeah, but we start off, and it's this voiceover by Dan Aykroyd before we've met his character. He's kind of colorizing the people in the city and what the city represents and how you're there, and you've either got it or you want it. And
the haves and have-nots.
Yes, some people will work hard to get the things they want, and some people will take the easy way out. They'll be the criminal mind and the like. And you were saying something just before we started recording about this, something you noticed about this monologue.
Yeah, there were a lot of subtle pleasantries and gems that I found along the way. He mentions the Pacific Rim of seediness as he pans underneath the giant donut that's brown.
Yes, and I like actually that shot came after he was talking about like religious places and everything too. So we got like a couple shots of church, different churches, is it a synagogue? Temple, and then
30 street views.
And then it cuts to the giant donut drive-through, and it's just like, this is also something that people worship here.
They praise.
In this seedy underbelly of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So then we meet Dan Aykroyd, and he explains he's Joe Friday. We have the big Dragnet theme music.
Bum, ba-dum, bum.
That's the one. And he marches up to the building, I guess the LAPD building.
Right.
Is that a real building? That's the LAPD building?
It's not. And it was so curious because they spent so much time on the intro, like going over the badge.
Yeah.
It was like 2 minutes of badge work.
Yeah, all the opening credits was just the badge.
Just the badge in different lights. It was
I
weird.
guess that was a big thing for the TV show. Like, was this... I mean, obviously today is a day where we have adaptations all the time.
All the time.
And it's all about fan service. But I mean, I wonder if the fan service, like, people were like, yeah, the badge!
More badge!
The badge! The really ridiculous thing was that they had this remix of the theme
Good
song.
God.
That
Good
they
God.
only did in the 80s, I think, where they'd
Only
have
in the 80s.
clips of dialogue from the movie and some lines that weren't even in the movie.
Right, just remixed.
Remixed and like kind of techno-y, but kind of not. Oh,
Just the facts, just the facts, ma'am.
That was another thing.
It's too much.
They use just the facts as if it was a funny line constantly. And
No
it's like
context.
I get it's from the original show and
Yeah.
it was a thing. It's
Yeah.
a staple, so you have to say it. But
You
like
have to.
they kept writing it in as if it was a punchline.
And it wasn't.
It was
Not where they wrote it in,
no,
at the very least.
no. How would you summarize what happens in this story?
I would say that a straight-laced, no-nonsense, by-the-book type of detective is working with another guy.
You'd say he was a good cop, maybe.
Good cop, heart of gold for sure. Like he's, morally on the right side of the compass.
He wants and he wants to get the job done.
Although I also have to say that he has a rather harsh view of the world around him. Almost cynical even.
I could see that too. Yes, he sees. It's almost like he's plagued too deeply by the things he disagrees with.
Right. Tom Hanks, his partner, on the other hand, has I'd say...
His partner, Detective Pep Streebeck.
Streebeck, yes. Peppy Pep.
So Dan Aykroyd's playing Joe Friday, Detective Joe Friday. The nephew of the original Joe Friday is how it's explained in story.
Loosely
explained. And then, yes, Tom Hanks plays Detective Pep Streebeck, who
seems to be a likable, friendly guy who has a warm disposition and is ready to take on the next challenge. He does not want to conform to the ways that his other partner and the partners in the past, the people we've seen working the detective life, go about it. He would prefer to go about it in a way that's, more open-minded. He's down for unique strategies to accomplish his goals.
he's the loose cannon.
Loose cannon, wild card.
So if we were gonna say this is in the good cop bitch cop territory, based
I like
on
that.
our short film,
I like that.
Dan Aykroyd is playing Detective Jensen, your character,
Absolutely,
good cop.
100%.
Tom Hanks is
playing
closer to bitch cop.
bitch cop
He's
in
got
this.
So
He's got a little bitch cop
I'm
there.
okay. I'm okay with being similar to Tom
I'm
Hanks. in
fine
our
with
roles.
Dan Aykroyd. I
All
like the way
right.
he delivers his lines.
Yeah, he's got that Joe Friday. It's not a swagger.
It's not.
You were saying something about the comparison between Joe Friday of the TV show and the Joe Friday of
so
Dan Aykroyd's
I had
portrayal.
seen a couple Dragnet episodes with my pop back in the day, many years ago, many moons ago, and I noticed that he has a very quick delivery. It's deadpan. They'll give him a intense zoom, but it lasts maybe 1 to 3 seconds max when he's doing the typical Joe Friday thing.
What's like a Joe Friday line? What like from the show? Give an example of reading.
So Joe Friday's walked up on a scene. There's a dead body, cops around it. He knows something afoot. He'd get a quick, tight zoom into his face and say something along the lines of, "Can't chalk a man, it's not there."
So it's almost like a Horatio Sands.
Indeed, indeed. Pretty much that,
in
exactly.
CSI Miami, like yeah. Okay,
Looks
so
like the cat's got
that's
your
interesting. Yeah, that's so the original Dragnet
Caruso.
is sort of like putting the Caruso DNA. It's like the first start of that evolution of how those kind of cop shows were done. Now the movie, you were saying it's
Dan Aykroyd's version of that is a very dry, intense, barrage of words where he's just getting his point across and overly emphasizing the seriousness of what's going on and what he's talking about. So it's a longer version, a more drawn out version of the original Joe Friday tact.
which version do you think you prefer? I mean, obviously they're going to be more suited for their respective mediums.
Exactly, that's the biggest point because you cannot take too much of the Danny Aykroyd style, beyond the hour and a half the movie is.
Yeah.
Every episode would be too much.
I mean, but that's the thing. Like, I give credit to Dan Aykroyd for having his own take on the character.
Yes, very much
But
so.
it's very much the Dan Aykroyd character.
Yes,
like this
yes.
is very much how Ray Stantz is funny.
Yeah.
And everything else he's played.
There's
even
airs of
Elwood Blues.
Coneheads.
Very Cone.
You know what I mean?
Coneheads. Although Coneheads, he gets to play it. I like his portrayal in Coneheads because he gets to play a little bit more of the sillier character.
Right.
And he's usually, he's always funny, but he's kind of the straight guy.
He's a straight
Especially
guy.
in Dragnet, he's the straight guy.
Yeah, he's certainly not the fall guy. You know what I mean?
No. Although,
He's an ensemble guy.
he's an ensemble guy for sure. But he He's the straight-laced man, and we put a diatribe there in the breakdown of the story you were doing. That was so wonderful. Why don't you jump in? Just give us a couple beat by beat what the plot is, who we're fighting, what's going on.
So, Tom Hanks and his partner, Dan Aykroyd, they're going along with each other trying to figure out if they have any chemistry as partners. Suddenly, there's a string of, crimes happening around the city. A bat goes missing, a single bat.
Yeah, there's a robbery at the zoo of a couple different...
An anaconda... The mane of a lion.
Yeah, that has a mohawk, and the kids are disappointed.
Which was an interesting time to show the different sides of personality. Dan Aykroyd didn't appreciate the mohawk. He told the kids that...
It'll grow back.
Tom Hanks says to the kids that it'll grow back, and then suddenly they're happy again, and Dan Aykroyd's kind of miffed by that. And it's like, why, buddy? The kids are smiling.
Yeah, that kind of comes back to your point about Dan Aykroyd being... too cynical.
Right.
Like he can't see the optimism that you can find in the bad stuff.
Exactly.
The quote unquote bad stuff.
So they're going along trying to figure out the reason behind all these random and seemingly unrelated crimes. And he figures out that there's a man involved who happens to be the limo driver of a TV evangelist. So they find this guy inside of a limo.
And I think the guy's played by, what is his name? Jack O'Halloran?
Yes.
Who's this kind of like big, meaty, muscle, funny-faced guy. He's been in a couple things. He was one of the 3 Zod dudes in Superman 2.
Yeah. The bad guys wearing matching outfits.
And they like throw the triangle thing.
And they hop in the triangle, and then they take flight with the triangle away from the scene.
And then don't they get trapped in at the end?
They do, and their hands go up kind of like mimes just against it. I'm pretty sure the triangle was like Superman's S as well.
Oh, yes,
that's right. He just rips the S off his chest. And
Superman 2 wasn't a Tom Hanks movie, so I haven't seen it.
Right, fair. I've seen it, and it's okay. You should check it out, maybe.
Maybe I will. It could use a little Hanks, I'm sure, but...
Yeah, for sure.
We certainly won't be talking about it much more on this podcast. But yeah, they're following this guy.
Yeah,
and
Emil Moose is his name.
Emil Moose.
Moose.
Yes, slimy guy.
Very.
Maybe it's Muzz.
It's
Jack O'Halloran.
Okay.
The actor's name. So they're following around this lurch of a man. They're trying to put these together these leads, and they keep finding these calling cards for an organization named Pagan. And it's got this like crazy demon goat head thing. It's like, what's all this?
It's mysterious.
And they start to go undercover. Cop cars are getting stolen, including our boys' cop car.
Several times.
The fire department has been infiltrated. There's just seeds of this pagan organization going out, and finally they do a undercover investigation where they go and find out it's this giant crazy cult that takes mind-blowing hallucinogenics and feeds virgins to giant snakes.
All kinds of wacky happenings are happening.
Yes, absolutely. And then we save the virgin Connie Swale.
Swale, yes.
And they keep referring to her as the Virgin Connie Swale.
You have to emphasize it. She is the Virgin.
Because that is what she is.
It's what she represents.
That is why she is a valuable character. Not
Indeed.
because she has anything to do with the plot or any action to take. It's because she's a virgin. That's why she's valuable.
Yeah.
So they save her, and they keep unfolding what this mystery is going, and it turns out there's a whole hotbed conspiracy with the commissioner of the city trying to put out the mayor.
Commissioner
and
Kilpatrick.
There's and the guy behind it is this TV reverend evangelist, as you were saying.
Yes, the evangelist
who's played by Christopher Plummer.
Indeed, pretty well. I thought he did a nice job.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job. Like I haven't seen him play a villain that good since Up, where he was Charles Muntz.
Indeed.
And there's also this kind of the reverend and the commissioner trying to scam out this slimy yet benevolent pornographer.
A one Mr. Jerry Caesar of
Yes.
Bait Magazine.
Yes, which is obviously very Playboy with the bait mates.
Yes.
Instead of the Playboy bunnies.
Although I found Jerry's personality to be that of a pimp, the way he talked and walked in.
Yeah, it seems like the cinema of the 1980s didn't have the proper nuance of the adult porn industry. We wouldn't get that really depicted well until Boogie Nights with Paul Thomas Anderson later
keen observation.
in the 90s. But but either way, like Dan Aykroyd comes down and he's like most disgusted by the pornographer at the beginning, but it turns out like he's just doing his job. And I feel like the movie, especially through Tom Hanks's portrayal, comes off on the side that, porn's fine. Like,
it exists.
It's just this kind of a wet blanket who's a little too into it.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
And we'll talk about it toward the end, about when we get to what the movie's about, how his character develops and maybe shapes how the movie says what the seedy things about LA and how bad they are. But let's so that's the plot. It's kind of this big caper. It's goofy.
Yeah, there's elements that are wacky, and I actually.
But it's a buddy movie, and obviously it's based off of Dragnet, so it's got to be kind of a cop mystery, a procedural.
Right. It's got to have the pieces.
And you kind of have to have a big crazy reveal where, oh, it was this guy all the time.
Yeah.
Does it work for you on that level, or is it more of because you've seen so many movies, it's just kind of like going through the motions for you?
It's interesting because in today's context, for me, it's definitely going through the motions. But I wonder how it would have felt had I seen it, when it came out.
Yeah, because like at what point in the buddy movie, especially the buddy cop genre, did this exist? Because this is like the most basic version of let's put two people together that don't get along. It's a neatish guy and a kind of wackier guy. This is before they were like, hey, let's introduce two people of different races, put them together, different genders, a guy and his dog, which we'll talk about in a future episode of TomHanksgiving. Hooch! And so this has come out after Beverly Hills Cop and other buddy cop movies. So it feels like we're kind of going backwards in the variation of let's put two opposites together and have them play against each other.
Right. But again, because it's a remake.
That's true, because it's
so...
Yeah, I mean, because they're also mired in Dragnet.
Right.
But so I'm wondering, because we talked about this, we brought this up initially because it's like, how did this work for you? Was it going through the motions? Or was this, do you think this would be inventive? And I'm wondering, of the time, because it's so late in the buddy cop evolution, because it's only 2 years later that we get the evolution of a cop and his dog as the duo in actually first K-9, but then way better in Turner and Hooch. So I feel like, this is kind of like, I wonder if it would have been played out in the day, and maybe only because it was Dragnet and it was because it was Dan Aykroyd that people were going, not that people wouldn't go see Tom Hanks, but again, this was still before his humongous turn as the leading man. I mean, he's led before.
He has.
But this isn't starring Rolls Hanks.
No, it's bizarre that it's I wasn't aware that Dan Aykroyd was that hot of a catch in terms of leading movies.
I don't know. I'm struggling to think of another movie he's led.
Right. That wasn't, especially not an SNL production. You know what I mean?
I mean, even the SNL productions, because you have the Blues Brothers, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But that's led. It's a duo, obviously, but he still gets second billing to John Belushi.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then obviously Ghostbusters, but that's Bill Murray who was starring in that. And
what about Blues Brothers 2000?
Good movie though.
I can't say.
Yeah, either he needed John Goodman to help him.
Get the good man.
Among the other 19 new Blues Brothers they introduced in that.
The little Blues brother.
Oh my God, little Buster Blues. Oh God.
Dan Aykroyd is a American gem, man.
Dan Aykroyd is interesting because I don't want to be mean to Dan Aykroyd.
No.
I don't. He doesn't strike me as a leading man, and that might have been why this movie just left me like it's kind of all right.
Yeah, he feels kind of like a Bill Hader these days.
Interesting. A lot of it is the writing of this movie. It feels very basic, very perfunctory. There's some funny stuff in it, but I feel like this was back in an age where movies could kind of coast on the charm of the stars,
right?
Rather than also have to have really strong writing to be funny. Like it's just enough for Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd to be funny, and they're definitely funny in certain key moments of this movie.
Sure.
I don't want to make it sound like they're not funny enough, but I feel like that mostly comes from like the story just being kind of it's okay. But again, for me, it was very much going through the motions of a buddy cop movie.
Right. They were just kind of filling in the pieces and not really adding more depth.
So we've talked a little bit about Dan Aykroyd, but this is the Tom Hanks podcast.
Of course.
What do you think of Tom Hanks' performance in this movie?
I was a bit conflicted. I like Tom Hanks a lot, but I didn't feel his character as much as I usually feel his characters. I was kind of watching him go through the motions, as you were saying before, doing the parts necessary, making the faces, dropping the lines, being charming to the women. But it wasn't anything where it's like, I like this guy. And in terms of his performance, part of it is the material they're giving you, but then also is what you're doing with it. And there were times when I felt like he was just phoning in a scene.
Like what's a specific instance in the movie?
The first time they get introduced, the two main characters, Tom Hanks hops out of a car
and he looks like Forrest Gump after the running sequence, which was just weird to watch.
And so he hops out of this car that's on the back of a tow truck, immediately in front of, Dan Aykroyd's character, who's super straight-laced, and
it's like in this day and age too. It's like watching comedy.
Yeah, it's just such a setup. So Tom Hanks gets out of the car and walks over, but it truly feels as if he's just coasting on. The humor is so obvious. I just have to be here.
Yeah, I can see that.
More so than like he's adding and truly living in that character.
Yeah, I didn't get it. Yeah, I mean, and that scene is so quick before he shaves and gets a haircut and dresses nice.
There's just so many little moments. Now there are also other moments where he's given a nice like young Tom Hanksy moment.
Let's actually, usually we do this a little later, but let's talk about the Hanksiest line. What do you think was the Hanksiest moment? Because I know what I think it was.
What was yours?
Mine was there, and this is like where, again, when you have something that Tom Hanks can do really well, or he takes something in the movie that is like, I can have fun with this. And it's where they've taken the commissioner and the head of the chief of the police to where the crazy cult rave was the night before. And they're looking into this little concrete pit where there was previously a hole, and he says to them, he's screaming, he's like, no, there was a hole and it was filled with water and we dove in, we saved the virgin, she's beaten by a snake.
Yeah, it was totally Hanksy.
Like that, and that was like the Hanksiest moment, and I loved it.
Schwitzing in a high shrilly voice, like,
whenever he gets to that yell, like that's pure Hanks right there. And so when he has those moments, and like there's some moments where he does some great undercutting of Dan Aykroyd's character, and that's when it's really working. Like they're when they're announcing they're at the cult thing and they're in disguise and they're undercover and they're trying to figure out what's going on, and the dude who we find out later is the Reverend calls upon they're going to sacrifice the virgin, and he just turns to Dan Aykroyd and is like, we better be careful, they might be talking about you, and just that kind of shit talking right to his face. Man. But affectionately doing so.
Affectionately. He's a warm guy, man.
But when they give him stuff like that, but I think what Tom Hanks suffered from more was he juxtaposing him against Joe Friday's neat, straight-laced self, and Tom Hanks being more the messier type. Because I think he plays the kind of conniving, more personable guy, and like you see his point of view a little bit more, because like this guy's like, he's got a stick up his ass. Yeah. But he doesn't play the wacky boisterous so much for me, unless he's yelling and he's frustrated. Right. I think Tom Hanks is funniest when he's frustrated. Right. And this is more of a movie about Dan Aykroyd being frustrated with Tom Hanks.
That's a good point.
And now I think this is a great opportunity for us to talk about that in comparison with his other buddy roles, because. When 2 years later, when we get to Turner and Hooch, Tom Hanks plays Scott Turner, who's actually more the Joe Friday character. He's the clean freak, the straight, laced guy. He's the guy who spends his weekends and his nights at home going to bed at like, oh God, it's in the movie as like he's in bed at 8 o'clock, I think. It's 9 at the latest. Yeah. And he's trying to get some sleep, and all he does is work out, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And of course, when they introduce Hooch as the messy, crazy, chaotic thing, the chemistry is perfect. So I feel like here it's almost like Dan Aykroyd's a better Joe Friday, but what they wanted to do with Pep Streebeck, half the time it really works with Tom Hanks, but half the time like it's kind of betraying what Hanks plays to best. Yes. Which I think the better version of this duo is, let's talk about Woody and Buzz.
Woody and Buzz.
Is Woody and Buzz... Who of Woody and Buzz is Joe Friday and Pep Streebeck?
Buzz is definitely... good question.
Because I see elements of both of them. Yeah. When Tom Hanks jabs at Dan Aykroyd in Dragnet, there's those little jokes. I see that in Woody when he's talking to Buzz.
Absolutely.
Buzz is also this kind of, very strategically focused,
Militant, ready to get something done expeditiously.
Yes, he's on it's all about the job. He's all
Right.
about the business.
Focused.
But at the same time, Woody is trying to be the more orderly one and keep things the way they should be.
Status quo.
Which feels a little bit more Dan Aykroyd in this movie.
Right.
It feels a little bit more Joe Friday. Plus, he's the sheriff, so he kind of has that
Innate
leader role.
Yeah.
Whereas Buzz kind of comes in, and of course, like plot-wise, Buzz comes in to disrupt Woody's world as Pep comes in to
He's the wild card.
destroy. Yeah.
You don't know what lengths Buzzer is going to go to in order to achieve his own individual goals.
And I mean, there's no doubt that the combination of Woody and Buzz plays way better than it does
For sure.
in Dragnet. But how do you feel with those comparisons? Where do you think they align better? Is Woody the Dan Aykroyd character in this movie?
I would say that...
Like, if you were going to put Woody and Buzz in this movie, whose part would they be playing?
Yeah, I would put Woody as Dan Aykroyd's character. I
Yeah.
would absolutely, because the thing about Dan Aykroyd is, later on in the film, he does something very wild and seemingly out of character where Tom Hanks is the voice of reason. When they're at the restaurant scene and they discover the person who perpetrated all this pagan stuff, the Reverend, he's pointed out by the Virgin
Connie Swale.
Virgin Connie Swale. He decides to take it upon himself to make the bust right there, knowing that it probably would not work to his advantage. Then he brings the Reverend over to the commissioner and to the captain, and it's proven true that it wasn't worth doing. He eventually loses his badge.
Yeah, it gets revoked.
So
It's some bad stuff.
in that vein, if you see Joe Friday as the straight-laced guy who, if he has his own purpose and truly believes it within, he'll do the thing that doesn't keep the status quo necessarily, then I could totally see him as the Buzz character. But if you're giving him the straight-laced view the entire time, who he is, throughout, the essence of why he's doing whatever he's doing, then I'd have to give it to Woody.
Although Woody does break the rules, too.
Right. In what ways?
I mean, he's the one who comes up and literally says in the movie, hey guys, we might have to break some of the rules now, but
Yeah.
it's going to work. And then they come alive in front of a child
That does
and
happen.
traumatize him for life.
That does happen.
Oh, it's going to be fun when we talk about Toy Story.
I know.
Uh,
That's a tough one, man. Who
yeah,
would you say?
I think I mean, obviously there's elements of both, as we were saying, but I just think it's interesting that in these other two movies, especially Toy Story, it's almost like at least the mechanics of the plot is reversed. Tom Hanks's world is interrupted by the wild card introduced, whether that be Buzz Lightyear or Hooch. And Tom Hanks being the wild card, I mean, again, I think the man can play almost anything outside of a crazy science fiction movie.
Yeah, that doesn't go well for him.
And he's certainly more of a wild card than Dan Aykroyd. Obviously.
By far.
He's the wilder card. But I think the best Hanks is when he's frustrated.
Yes.
Because he's such a relatable guy that when we get to see that anger in him, it's funny because we're not like, oh, this guy's an asshole. It's funny
Right.
because it's like, oh, that's exactly what I would do.
We're living vicariously.
Like, that's why, like, he's a horrible asshole in The Money Pit,
Yeah.
but we loved it when he was angry at Shelley Long. So it's interesting. To turn it back to how I feel about his performance,
Yeah.
again, it's half the time he's doing it, but I think you're right. Half the time it's kind of like he doesn't have the material, or he's just not doing
Committing
it.
to it.
Yeah, and that's hard for me to say because I feel like Tom Hanks, even when he's given the bad stuff, like even Cloud Atlas, he's committing 100%.
100%.
It's not working very well.
I'm wondering how he feels about the material, though.
That's true. There's not a whole lot. Like, again, most of this movie's funniest parts, not to dismay the writing, because there is some funny jokes in there, but like the moment to moment funny is based on their chemistry.
Yeah.
It's just the charm of the actors, and Tom Hanks is nothing but charm.
Nothing
of course.
but charming.
But at the same time, this is one of his roles where it feels like he's less committed.
It's a bit still to this performance. Just a bit.
What was your favorite moment?
Favorite moment? Just before they, was it before or after when Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks were in the goat pants in the captain's office dancing, showing him the ritual dance that was at the pagan ceremony?
It was after.
That's my favorite part. When they're literally jumping up and down, they take the long shot from outside the window, and you just see the pantomime with their legs flapping up and down in these like white, full-on goat pants. That's my favorite.
Because at that point, they're just complete goofballs.
Complete goofballs, and then you have the juxtaposition to the captain's deadpan facial reaction, where it's like they're just going nuts in front of him. How about you?
Mostly a lot of little moments. There's a very quickly or early on in Tom Hanks's introduction scene when we meet Pep Streebeck, and he finally dresses the way that Joe Friday approves of, and Joe Friday walks away, and we just get this moment of Tom Hanks making the jerk off motion.
Yeah.
That's just a great little like, okay, we still know this guy is like, I mean, that's Tom Hanks playing well to that character.
Right.
But which is interesting because like that scene we talked about earlier when he walks over.
Yeah.
He's not there.
Right.
But when he does the jerk off moment, he's there. So he's there half the time. And it's like,
I'm telling you,
it's frustrating. It's like half this movie is good. The other half isn't bad. It's just, it's not trying hard.
I would love to know like the shooting schedule and like what he was feeling during these shots. Because it's like night and day between when he cares and when he doesn't, seemingly.
Yeah.
But I also appreciated the little moments with Dan Aykroyd when they first pull up to the mansion, Jerry Caesar's mansion, and the voice box goes, "Ooh, thank God, vibrator repair." Dan Aykroyd's like, "No, ma'am, LAPD."
Yes.
That's a nice little crescendo there. I liked it.
One of my favorite parts of the story and the way they told the story, because again, we said already, it's kind of just going through the motions. It's not bad, but it's a little perfunctory. But one of my favorite things story-wise was when we lose the point of view of Joe Friday, and they give a moment to Pep Streebeck, so Tom Hanks is narrating, and it's like, oh, we're getting to subvert that. I always like it when they do that in movies or shows or something like that, where they're playing with the point of view, and it's just kind of breaking convention. And then, I mean, it's like not great to the representation of female characters, but I really enjoyed how he had this, relationship with another officer. We never really saw
random woman officer.
But I mean, it's not like they treated her like she was not an equal partner in that relationship. We just didn't see her story in this movie.
All.
But I kind of love the little playing the games. Or another great part, like maybe my favorite Dan Aykroyd moment is when he shows up and sees them obviously in the middle of some kinky sex with like him being handcuffed. And his explanation over voiceover is just like, they're practicing a good cop, bad cop routine. I can't quite understand. Now, okay, here's a question. Do you think Joe Friday in this movie is completely clueless about sex, or was he just doing lip service? He knew what was going on.
He knew, and the way you know is at the very end, when you get the moment of the two officers meeting up again, walking up their stairs to their job. Tom Hanks, asks Dan Aykroyd what he was doing that night, and Detective Joe Friday is basically saying that he spent the evening with Connie Swale.
Wait. Don't you mean the virgin Connie Swale?
Nice eyebrow raise.
And
dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 I banged. It's crazy.
Now, how do you feel about that being the end of the movie? That is the punchline we've been building to. Because that's the last shot. We get that eyebrow from Dan Aykroyd, and then it cuts to the two of them going up to the non-existent LAPD building.
Giant-ass
tower.
building, yeah.
And then it morphs into the badge, and then we have credits.
More badge work.
How do you feel about that as an ending to this movie?
I didn't think it was a great choice, but I thought it was pretty indicative of the whole movie, where it's like, let's just do it. Like, nice little laugh here. It's like, it just seems so kind of hodgepodge,
Yeah, it really makes this movie feel like there's not a whole lot it's about.
Right. Where it's not like, nobody is expecting this to be meaningful or to, grasp the keys to life within this film.
But at the same time, it's not like there isn't material there to say something resonant.
Right.
We have this weird cult thing.
We're talking about cults in L.A. and the seediness.
And like we're talking about how you have different aspects of community, and like the porn thing is a very hotbed issue where it's like, is pornography strictly wrong? Are there shades of gray to it?
Right.
Are there 50 of them?
Right.
Yeah, but there's stuff to talk about within this movie, and then they just end it on, I have sex. And it's like, it's weird, because when Connie Swale's first introduced as the virgin, like, Dan Aykroyd instantly finds her absolutely beautiful.
There's no...
And they fall in love
with her.
immediately.
Immediately.
And like what he describes, like what's great about her is like she's pure, and that's a little creepy. That's a little uncomfortable for me.
Very, very much so.
Like, again, the reverence, even if they're pointing out, like, Joe Friday is a fallible character, and obviously by the end, he's like, maybe virginity's not so great.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of that.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it ends on it, it makes it more poignant for me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, really? It wasn't even that funny.
And then it immediately goes into, like, this musical number where Joe Friday, Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd just start rapping over this, like, beat version of the Dragnet theme song, like a full long 4-minute song of rapping with both of these actors actually actively rapping, man.
Okay, now actually that is very interesting because
Let's just do it.
No, that is what. Maybe we'll play a little in the podcast just for you to hear.
Yeah,
Please don't sue us.
Don't sue. Yeah,
Universal, don't sue us. We're just gonna put in a couple seconds. Just listen to this.
Like 3 or 4, you know.
See that, Streebeck, we're just in time. We have stumbled into a major crime.
They got the girl all frightened. Now that's not nice. I think she is the subject of a sacrifice.
Buddy, we're putting this party on ice.
But don't you know we really ought to read them their rights?
Read them their rights. Read them their rights.
So my question, because this is such a terrible song.
It's terrible.
There is a story I've heard where when they were casting Toy Story, when they were making the first movie, and they approached Tom Hanks and they're showing him it's going to be an animated movie.
No, they didn't.
The first thing he said was, "You're not going to make me sing, are you?" And this is the only record I can remember I've seen in any of the earlier movies where Tom Hanks sang.
Actively.
And I wonder if it's because of this little rap at the end that he was like, "I'm never singing in a movie again."
Yo,
because it was so
these were some
terrible.
greedy businessmen trying to make top dollar, saying, "Yo, somebody's gonna buy Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks rapping, dude. Somebody's gonna do it."
Like, I love Tom Hanks. He can do almost anything, but that is maybe the worst two people to sell a rap song.
Goodness.
Oh my god.
It didn't make any sense. I was like,
unless you're doing it like intentionally bad, but the movie wasn't in that category.
yo, he sounded like a backup Beastie Boy.
Oh my god.
Tom Hanks was going in. He was going in.
Well, that's the thing. Tom Hanks committed 100% to the rap.
He committed to the rap. If he had brought with his rap like emphasis to his acting, it would have been, Oscar worthy.
I don't know, but to give him some credit,
nomination.
or at least to give him some wiggle room, maybe this was one of those situations where he's still starting out in his career.
Yeah.
And he's got to make money, and he's got to make the right choices. He saw that this movie was, they're just doing a TV adaptation for a cash-in.
Sure.
But it's a great opportunity to work with Dan Aykroyd.
Get my face out there.
Get my face out there and get a paycheck. So
a nice
maybe
little check.
he was like, I'm gonna take a little easier on this one. So, and then he was like felt bad about it, so that's why he committed so hard to the rap.
Yeah.
And he was burned on the rap, which is why he was like, I'm never singing.
I'm never rapping.
I'm never singing in a movie again. Which Toy Story they didn't make it do, but they did make him do in Toy Story 2. But I think the success of Toy Story maybe was like, all right.
Rejuvenated his confidence in his
and
musical abilities.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
This song is so weird. I do think that this movie may have had repercussions for how he approached other projects in the future.
I'm sure.
Especially because he always ended up playing, again, the straight-laced cop, the one that was in his two, well, I mean, not that Woody's necessarily a cop, but in his two buddy movies in the future, like, that's how it works. Like,
it's within his wheelhouse to be that guy.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think the best Hanks is a Hanks that is kind of your everyday guy who is absolutely frustrated.
Yeah.
Again, like, very similar to, like, him in The Burbs, or Woody, or even Catch Me If You Can. He's kind of like that.
Sure.
I mean, he's not the main character in that, but that's the kind of character he plays. He's more than Joe Friday.
Definitely, yeah.
Castaway is another perfect
normal
example.
guy in the most frustrating situations.
Yeah. Not that he can't do the other things really well, because Big is obviously is very unique from that, and he's fantastic at it. Actually, Big, his performance...
In Philadelphia.
Of course. Philadelphia is a whole other...
That's a whole other... Yeah. We all get it.
But that's interesting because Big actually comes after Dragnet. So maybe this movie actually pushed him in that direction.
Pushed him.
So that to me even says maybe there was repercussions in how he approached the performance. Obviously, the character of Josh Baskin in Big is entirely different. It's a way different context.
Sure.
But he brings that wild card energy where, like, if he was playing that up against Dan Aykroyd's hard, fast, play by the rules cop, you know he could have done it. So I wonder if, like, this was like he saw the performance. Maybe he was giving his all. And
That's
it
what
was
I was
just
gonna say.
maybe he was giving his all, and it wasn't in his proper wheelhouse at the time. And he's like, he saw the movie. He's like, oh, this is where I could have done better. And then he brings
learning
that
process.
energy. Obviously, Big is a whole different character, and I'm sure it's definitely more suited to what he can do.
Because with the Pep Streebeck character, he necessarily has to play a fine line between both worlds.
Yes,
Because there is an eventual part in the plot where Joe Friday is completely taken out of the picture.
so this might actually be a really important movie for Tom Hanks' development because, you know, it's the mistakes that you learn the most from.
Right.
So maybe he saw this and was like, okay, I gotta give it a little harder. If he was committing before, it's like, all right, I didn't do it right. Or if he wasn't committing, it's like, you can see it in my performance, so I'm gonna go all out. Because, again, there's not another movie I can think of off the top of my head where he's not giving it his all, except for his appearance in the Carly Rae Jepsen video. But the point of that is that he's not, he's just sleepwalking through it. That's why it's amazing. That will be on episode 90 of the TomHanksgiving podcast when
Check
we
it
do that song. And maybe we'll close out the episode with that song this time instead of our usual theme. So this movie's rated PG-13.
Yep.
There's some pretty naked ladies in it, though.
You got a whole bunch of exposure going
Like
on.
it's not so much at like the porn mansion, but there's one scene where they go to Tom Hanks' favorite coffee shop, which
Hey.
happens to be a strip club,
Hey.
and there is just a big butt in the camera's face,
Big old butt.
and it's a butt, and it's like, wow, this is. If you're 13 years old, I can see why you're going to see this movie.
For sure, and you definitely don't want parental guidance.
And then no, you don't. And then she turns around and she's just got the tassels on. And I guess
Tassels.
I think like it's kind of ridiculous that you can show male nipples and you can't show female nipples.
Offensive even.
Like get over yourself. Like it's not women's bodies that's making bad things happen. It's terrible male perspective.
What is this, the 50s?
Come on. But at the same time, I am surprised that in this movie that was PG-13 in the 80s,
In the 80s.
you got to see that much boob.
There's a lot of boob.
That's a lot of boob.
There's a tiny tassel and a lot of boob.
Oh, that reminds me of another thing where maybe the Pep Streebeck character is a little off is because, as we talked about in the Money Pit episode, there is not a lot of Tom Hanks's sexual appetite. He's not a very. We don't see a lot of sex scenes with Tom Hanks, and even like he obviously has a lot of love interests, but it's played very romantic, very very cutesy. We don't get a lot of that sex factor in
Right.
with our Hanks.
Right.
And this is a character who's he's into the porn. He goes to the strip club, and I think it's funny when it does it. Like that might, I mean, like that's even like more the writing that's funny. But like it's weird how maybe
know-
that's a factor with the Hanks because like he's
Yeah.
such a charming like you love this guy.
Yeah.
But the only time where like I'm into his like his portrayal of like him as a sexual being is when he's playing a 13-year-old boy in a dude's body, like, oh, girls are pretty and sex is scary but fun. Like that mentality, which I mean he's not much more mature as Pep Streebeck in this movie.
Right.
But there's something about like even when he was sort of in bed with Shelley Long in The Money Pit, it's like you don't see this from Tom Hanks a lot.
You don't. That's
So I wonder if that was like an aspect of the wild card where it's like he played it as good as he can, but it's a little uncomfortable coming out of Tom Hanks because he's like, I don't know, he's such a fatherly figure. I mean, even when he was young, like he's just like this good guy.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to carry through the entire character for me until you put those scenes back to back to back with each other. I didn't really leave the film thinking he was that sexual of a guy, but you're absolutely right.
It's that you're right though, and too that because it falls out. It's
Yeah,
not consistent.
it's
like,
not.
But there's a few scenes where he's a sleazebag.
For sure.
And I think he plays it right in certain instances. But like when it comes to, and again, I said I really enjoyed the scene where they go and he's with the female cop and they're doing that. But that, again, that's such a sexy Hanks, and it's like we don't really see that.
You don't.
And it's interesting. Okay, so like I think this is a more sex hungry Tom Hanks than we see in The Money Pit.
For sure.
This is the most as of TomHanksgiving podcast is concerned, this is the most sex active Tom Hanks we've seen.
Yes.
Not the most skin we've seen. Obviously, that's Castaway.
Yes.
But
That's a lot of skin there.
a lot of skin. We won't see more skin until I think Turner and Hooch.
This is slapping skins.
So much skin in Turner and Hooch.
But I think that
Not to deny Tom Hanks and his right to having a sexually active portrayal,
hey man, dad bobs are popping.
but
You do it up, Tommy Hanks.
well, I mean, he's pretty slim and trim in his glory days.
Yeah, for sure. That time Castaway came around.
Well, he got slim and trim at the end, I guess. Well,
Well, that was under dire straits.
but not in a good way. Not in a good way. We missed our pudgy, lovable Hanks body. Oh God.
Oh man.
So that's another interesting thing with this movie. But yeah, it kind of plays inconsistently with its like sex appeal, like the PG-13 sex appeal. But like, you know, with the strip club scene and then some of these things with Tom Hanks, it's like I wonder if that's another thing that, again, I think it's funny material, but it's just that might be another thing that Tom Hanks is like, it's because you don't ever see it in, like, he's made over 70 movies that we will be doing on this podcast. And there's so few scenes I can recall where he's like engaging in sexual intercourse or any sort of amorous relations where it isn't like purposefully uncomfortable, like the scene in Big or the scene in Forrest Gump.
Right.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think the difference between this movie and Big is one is just more of a Hanks. There's more Hanks moments in Big than in this movie. You know what I mean? More moments where he can really be himself, really get the energy that he does so well across.
Which makes sense because it's his movie. He's the star.
And in this particular movie, Dragnet, it seems like he has to think about other things. He has to think about pulling off the sex scenes. He has to think about, you know, being the fall guy to Dan Aykroyd's setups. Yeah.
He's more mechanical. Not that he's mechanical in the movie, but like just be based on the structure and the script of the movie. He has a more mechanical role to play because the story
functions.
Because the story is based on like, oh, it has to be this kind of story with these two characters and they solve a mystery and they clash. That's this story, so Tom Hanks has to fill those functions, as you're saying. With Big, it's like, here's a story about this character, this is what he does. So his function is what the story is. I mean that's always going to be more interesting. Like that's a case by case basis, but it also does lend to why his performance is stronger.
Because you know Tom Hanks' evolution in the movie is like he comes in as kind of the stoner loose guy that we see as just a wild kid with
straggly hair. He does kind of come in like they almost give him a stoner vibe, but you don't ever get that.
When he dresses up, he almost seems like a dirty man that goes to the bar, that goes to the strip club just for coffee, right? Not like a stoner, lackadaisical kid.
Yeah.
Then he has to also be able to pull off the detective that's giving the narration. You know what I mean? He's become the lead when Dan Aykroyd's character is taken out of the plot because he was kidnapped. He's become the guy that's leading the charge. He says to some kid, hey, straighten up, comb your hair, tighten up your shirt, just like Dan does earlier. He has to be able to perform all these different functions that's not really based on how one person would probably see all of it.
There's more Tom Hanks portrayals in this movie than there are in Cloud Atlas.
Right. It's like, come on.
And actually, now that we're talking about it, I think that is a problem with the writing. Like, you can... I like the scene where he talks to the kid and tells him to... The other police officer, like, to respect the rules and does that. Because it's obviously a sign of Dan Aykroyd has influenced him, and he's fulfilling that role. But I feel like the movie around it hasn't... Both his performance and the scenes written for him haven't pushed him where that was a natural evolution of his character. And I think because he's playing, like, when he shows up, he's kind of like the bum, stonery type of loser. And then he's the sleazeball kind of guy. And then he plays just like the snarky guy. And the snarky guy is what works best in this movie for me. And the snarky guy I could see evolving into being the guy who represents... and responds to the guy who yells and talks. He becomes the new Joe Friday when there is no Joe Friday. But the stonery sleazeball, like, it doesn't all line up. So this movie is a little messy, which is not a surprise. But it leads to a very meal-piece Tom Hanks performance. And again, maybe he is committing harder than we can see, and this is just a thing of like him recognizing, maybe I have to pick my projects a little better. Maybe I know what I can't do as well, so I'm going to go for what I can do really well. Mm-hmm. Not that stops him from the future from breaking out and doing something completely different with Philadelphia.
Yeah. Very different.
There was another scene in this movie that's not your typical Hanks, but I actually loved it.
What's that?
And that's when they do the actual good cop, bad cop routine.
Yes.
And he becomes a
literal
ball buster. He's talking to our big lanky boy, Emil Fuzz. They're interrogating Emil Fuzz. And Hanks, or Pep says to Joe Friday, hey, go get us some coffee.
Yeah.
And then he's like to Emil, like, all right, so the other thing that's in this room now is you, me, your balls, and this drawer.
This drawer right here.
And we cut out, and we see Joe Friday getting the coffee, and this horrible scream. We cut back, and we're getting all this information. Now, and the end of that scene plays like, Joe, why don't you go to some Danishes?
Why don't you get some Danishes, Joe?
And then Joe gives this knowing smirk, because I felt like the first time they played that joke, Joe Friday would never have gone along with that kind of duress. That is so against his character.
Yeah.
So that's why Tom Hanks told him to go, so he could do it.
Right.
And get the results.
Buy some time.
Because he's a hotshot loose cannon in this movie.
Of course.
That totally makes sense. I'm down for it. It's a fun gag. But when Joe Friday is in on the joke the second time...
And, Pep pulls the drawer out slowly, insinuating what's to come.
And there's no denying that he's in on it that time.
Yeah, he knows.
Then that kind of breaks his character for me.
It's like, is Joe Friday the type of guy who'd be okay with this, suspect's balls getting repeatedly brutalized?
This is a man who follows the letter of the law.
He's in love with
the
letter
virgin,
of the law. Connie Swell. You know what I mean? Is that the same type of guy that's going to support this? I don't know. So
there's another example of the script being inconsistent with its characterization, which lends to it's less Tom Hanks' fault, and it's the script.
Right.
I'm just defending Tom Hanks here, people. This is what I do on my podcast.
What's that guy's name? Tom Mankiewicz?
Tom Mankiewicz.
This is Mankey's
Well, Dan Aykroyd was the head writer.
Oh, well, Dan, you wrote yourself into quite a predicament here.
You did. It's no wonder that Bill Murray came on and improvised 80% of Ghostbusters.
Oh, harsh.
I'm sorry.
Too soon.
Aykroyd, you're great. And actually, I'm going to point out something that I love from your career right now is that actually made me disappointed in this movie. Because here's the thing: Dragnet is a movie that has a lot of things in it.
Yeah.
But none of the things it does, I've seen them all in other movies that have done them better.
Absolutely.
There's nothing in this movie that's like, oh, but this was done the best in Dragnet.
Very well said.
It's very much like, oh, this is an amalgamation of things I've seen in other movies that are better. There's not even anything that's like super unique to this movie.
No, not at all.
And the perfect example of this is when they do the car chase with the limo driver, and they're doing this. It's not a very fun car chase.
No.
But it's supposed to be ridiculous, and at one point, they drive through a stand that has Muppets, and that's exactly what happens in the Blues Brothers when they're running away from the police officers and doing the amazing car chase through the mall.
They just did it worse.
It literally starts with like a guy shopping at a toy store, and he's trying to buy a Sesame Street puppet, and then he's like, yeah, do you have anything else? Do you have a Miss Piggy? And then boom! The Blues Brothers drive in, and they're being chased by the police, and it's this absolutely ridiculous thing. And there's also a Lego recreation of this on YouTube, and if you haven't seen it, go check that out. It's amazing.
Did Dan Aykroyd write Blues Brothers too?
Yeah, he wrote he wrote that too. So with John Landis. So
I feel like he has a thing about, car chases and Muppets. He seems to write it into all these films.
I mean, who wouldn't if you had the opportunity?
I had access.
But this obviously...
I'm going to write myself running into a Muppet.
This obviously came after the Blues Brothers, because the Blues Brothers is 1980.
Yeah.
And that, it's like, it's not as good the second time.
It's not as good the second time.
Like, I felt like they were trying to recreate that, but they just didn't have as strong of a director, because obviously John Landis...
I would love to ask him that question. Did you intentionally... Because how could he not? How could he not know that it was another movie?
I think they literally have... I can't remember if it's Aykroyd or Hanks who says it, but one of them literally says before they run into it, Muppets! So they made a distinct reference. Like, they were aware that this was happening.
But it wasn't enough to be like a meta gag about the Blues Brothers.
No, I mean, I don't think so. Metagags have evolved over the years, so maybe that's what passed for one back in the day.
Perhaps.
But, and obviously, I'm sure there are fans of, because again, this is a Dan Aykroyd movie more than it's a Tom Hanks movie.
Yeah.
There are fans of Dan Aykroyd who will be like, hey, it's like that thing.
Right.
But it's such a less good version of that thing, because the Blues Brothers, that might, I mean, this maybe is blasphemy. No, Ghostbusters is better, but the Blues Brothers is so good and
real good.
Underrated. They're like, when I think of my favorite Dan Aykroyd movie, I think of that, but that's only because I don't like Dan Aykroyd so much in Ghostbusters. He's good, he's necessary.
He plays the part,
but it's not like him as Elwood Blues.
No.
And Blues Brothers is so good, and that car chase is one of the greatest moments in that movie. It's one of my favorite car chases I've ever seen, actually.
It's really fun.
It's so much fun. The music is just killer. And again, watch that Lego recreation.
Got to.
I'll put it in the show notes or something.
Yeah.
It's worthwhile.
He also does, Dan Aykroyd, he also does a little bit of the straight talking, repeated canon of words in Blues Brothers as he does in Dragnet.
That's true. But again, like, that's his shtick.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's the one thing he can do well occasionally. This is not supposed to be hating on Aykroyd, even though he's into like weird crystal skull shit now. I don't know what that's about. Like he would be a member of the pagan cult.
He certainly would. He'd be catching himself. It'd be a real Looper situation there, huh?
Oh my gosh, you're bringing in Looper. If only that was a Tom Hanks movie. Has there been a Tom Hanks time travel movie?
I don't know.
I guess the closest is almost Cloud Atlas, but that's more of not traveling, but time echoes.
Yeah.
There should be a Tom Hanks
I'd love to see Tom Hanks in like a doppelganger movie, but is Cloud Atlas going to be the one?
Maybe. There was doppelgangers in Toy Story 2, but it was Buzz.
Yeah, right.
There's so much Tom Hanks hasn't done yet that
I know. So much room to grow, Tom.
But don't try and do the car chase from Blues Brothers again. It was done perfectly.
It was done then.
Both times they have amazing car chases in that movie.
Why would you do it?
But yeah, that just summarizes that this movie does things like it has nothing in this movie that is done best in this movie. It's always like the second best of version of something you've seen in another movie.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of that's very unique to this movie is, I'm sure it's been done in other movies, but like the ball buster scene is actually pretty good and pretty unique. Pretty good. Again, something kills it for me because of the mischaracterization of Dan Aykroyd at the end.
Yep.
The other thing I can think of, like, this is the big joke, and maybe it played a lot better in the time it was in, but the big joke they end the movie on is that they pull over a plane in another jet.
Which is so ridiculous. You know what? I'm surprised I haven't brought that up yet. That is such a ridiculous series of like the whole thing is crazy to me. You're struggling so hard, but then first you're struggling so hard, but then you're able to acquire a plane like that that's like perfectly decorated for the scene. Then your plane is so fast that it's matching up to at least like a 2-hour head start. Like, you just pull up side by side and you're like, go down now. And then the man finds like a perfect landing jet right there.
Oh my God.
A landing strip right there. It's like the...
That move at the end is on a tone... on a whole other planet that is the rest of the movie. And the rest of the movie is goofy and funny.
It's goofy,
and
campy,
wacky.
kitschy, it's all
and
that.
of a tone. But like that is a cartoon moment. Like that moment is out of Airplane.
Right.
And it
out of Airplane, exactly.
Slays in Airplane. Like
exactly.
that moment in Airplane is perfect and hilarious.
Yes.
But in this movie, it's like, really?
Like what?
What's good? What?
What? What is this? Is this the LAPD plane? Because it had like a blue light inside the cockpit.
What the fuck was that?
No one's looking at that light. It's a siren would make more sense to that light, but like that doesn't even work. It's the whole thing was wild.
Oh my! Like this movie relies so much on let's play the original TV show theme song to make the joke.
Do some silly shit theme song. Silly shit theme song.
But like they do it at the end where he's like, not the virgin Connie Swale. And they do it. It's so... This movie is just resting on the fact that you hope you like the original.
Yeah.
And that the music will make you nostalgic and will make you not pay attention that the characters in this movie are inconsistent at best, flat and ill-performed at worst, and the writing is all over the place, and it's just not a good movie.
No.
This movie,
Right.
it's the precursor to today's Jurassic World.
Oh, shots fired.
That's what this movie is. It's another cash-in on a property you once loved, and they don't really take the time for it. And it's not bad. It's just nothing's there that hasn't been done better anywhere else before.
It's terrible.
That is how I feel about Dragnet.
Hey there, you guys like the theme song to Dragnet? You like wacky jokes? I got something for you. It's gonna be fun.
How about Dan Aykroyd as a lead? Let's watch Dan Aykroyd.
You guys like Huey Lewis in the news? We got a great soundtrack for you. Come check it out.
Let's watch Dan Aykroyd try to kiss a girl. We really want to see that, right? That's not the least interesting thing.
You guys like bobble blades? We got those too.
You know what one of my favorite moments actually in this movie is, little bits of trivia, is that this movie, when they drop off the Virgin Connie's whale at her house, which is like goofy and it's very pink and there's like hearts in the windows.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks made a snide joke that was like, is the beaver going to come out and play? Because if you don't know what that means, it's not a sexual reference.
Leave It to Beaver.
It's Leave It to Beaver, which was the 50s
Wholesome TV show.
Wholesome TV show. So he's making fun of the house.
Yeah.
That's the same house from the Universal backlot that Tom Hanks lives in as Ray Peterson in The Burbs years later.
Is that right?
That's the exact house.
Is that right?
That's next to the Klopak house.
Wow.
As soon as I saw it, I recognized him. Like, it's
Wow.
which is also the street
Good
from
eye.
Desperate Housewives.
That okay. No, I can see that.
That street's
Man,
been
it's from that
everything.
movie too. Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't realize. House
So-
has been around for a minute.
it's yeah. I mean, that's an old place.
Yeah.
Many stories have been told there. We will revisit that house once more in the Burbs in a future episode. But
You know, another little piece that I noticed there was that Tommy Hanks was sporting a nice iWatch, just watching news reports.
yes,
On his wrist as he was in pursuit. It made no sense to me at all.
oh my god, I completely forgot about the iWatch.
My man had an
Where
iWatch,
did
B.
that come from?
Like a perfectly high res,
Like a fucking Apple Watch, and they.
with not plugged into anything, just straight up on his wrist, like
Where did that come from?
talking to Dan Aykroyd as if it's the most like nonchalant, this exists everywhere device possible.
It's like for a moment the movie passed out and thought it was the film version of Get Smart.
Right. It didn't make any sense. Because there was no like trope of like we do technology.
There was no Oh my god! I can't believe I just scrubbed over that.
Dude,
when
it's
I
crazy.
watched it.
They got planes and they got iWatches, B. It's
Out
wild.
of nowhere, not set up, it's so inconsistent with it. This movie sucks.
Thank you. I couldn't reckon with it, but now hearing you say it, it's not good, bro. It's not
Oh
good.
my god.
It's not good.
Oh, I think it's a necessary movie for the evolution of Hanks. 'Cause
Yes.
The next thing we get is big, so he learned from his
He
mistakes.
definitely learned.
He learned to make sure the script was good for him, to play in his wheelhouse, and to give 100%. And I mean, I'm sure you do grow as an actor. So like the things he wasn't able to do here, he was like, oh, here's how I could work on them
Yep.
and be better next time.
Yep.
And he killed it when he was playing the wildish card and the more juvenile character in Big, when he was playing in other buddy cop movies like Turner and Hooch and Toy Story, and obviously the rest of his career is fantastic. The career before this is good, but this movie it strikes me as a low point. It's certainly not as a movie as low of a point for me as Cloud Atlas,
Yeah.
or even the Lady Killers maybe. But in terms of a performance level, it's like this was a stepping stone and a stumbling block for me.
Both at the same time, yeah.
So Dragnet's, it's one of the least essential Hanks movies, I'd say.
You know, Ebert gave it 3 stars.
Out of 5?
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Still, think
That's-
so.
that's
Not
an
a 2?
That's an average score. Like the
Alright.
movie's not actually bad.
It's entertaining.
It has entertaining moments. Like I mean, that's the thing. Like it's not good,
yes.
but it's not bad. There's a weird and sometimes that can be worse. Like if you
Right.
want to like the movie, which is my issue with Jurassic World, is because it wasn't bad. It was just not good.
Yeah.
I think I liked it even less. That is a weird place in which a movie exists between it's not good, but it's not actively bad. There
Right.
is inconsistent writing, which informs inconsistent portrayals of the characters. The tone things that we actually just jumped on here at the end with the plane and the Apple Watch out of nowhere are just bizarre. And like, although
makes no sense.
I don't know. Like, I wonder if like it was more egregious at the time because it's like, oh, what the fuck is that?
Out of nowhere.
And because I just glossed over it because it's like, oh, people talk to their watches all the time. But in this day
My
and
man
age,
had
like,
live video.
live
video.
and they went to 3 different payphones in
Right.
this movie.
Looking for and I'm pretty sure like I saw a mini mic on the watch and was like, yo, didn't you just go to 3 payphones in the city
What's
that
going on in this movie? So that's how it's bad. It's bad in that way. It's not bad in like you watch it and it's saying terrible things, although it's not
Right.
saying great things. It's not bad as in like the actual filmmaking quality is bad. Although the writing is not great.
Not great.
It's bad in
Pretty
places.
stilted.
But I'm gonna say this is not bad, not good. That's where I'm leaving it.
Not bad, not good. I'll agree to that.
But again, a stepping stone and a stumbling block for Hanks's evolution.
Yeah.
So in that respect, it's a good thing to exist. If this is your favorite Dragnet movie, or well,
I hope there's no others.
certainly not. If this is your favorite Tom Hanks movie, let us know why. I'd love to find out.
I also encourage you to watch more Tom Hanks movies.
Of course, because we're not going to stop. We're going to keep talking about him. And in fact, next week, I'll be back to be talking about The Man with One Red Shoe.
Ooh.
A case of mistaken identity, and we'll also see a performance from Carrie Fisher.
Nice.
Along Tom Hanks. One of the
K
two,
Fish.
they had the same. So if you have any thoughts about that, or if you have any thoughts about Dragnet, write to us. You can send us an email at tomhankspod@gmail.com, or find us on Twitter at tomhankspod. Where can the people find you, Melvin?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at 2blackcs. You can find me on my website, melvinswork.com. And yeah, keep posted, keep checking out, see what I got going on.
And you can always find the occasional work on our website, utterentertainment.com.
Utter Entertainment as well. We got some funny joints up there.
If you haven't seen Police Navidad yet, go see it.
Feel good film of the year.
It's a... Are we going to make the claim that it's a better buddy cop movie than Dragnet?
I will certainly stand my flag on that.
I'll never say we're better than Tom Hanks.
No.
No one is.
It won't be true.
But the buddy cop movie that we're able to do in about 10 minutes,
We nailed it.
way better than Dragnet.
Nailed it.
Check that out. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, Melvin.
Of course, buddy, anytime.
All right. Anything else to leave the viewers on? The listeners on?
No, but I did want to mention that they spent far too much time on Tom Hanks's burger phone. They did like an intense zoom, and like I didn't know why.
That was weird.
Like he held it to the screen physically out and then put it down.
You know what I think that was?
Specifically.
I think that was a joke. That might have been an early instance of, oh, a burger can be a phone.
Yeah, because it is a thing. I heard in some other pop culture show that like the burger phone was a thing. You know what I mean? So maybe it was the first time
because
it came
of the
out.
way that timing happens, I think that was they're holding for laughs.
Bro, he goes, yes.
That's totally what that
in a
was.
movie theater? Totally I can see that.
That's actually really funny. That's a little time capsule.
Yeah.
And yet that makes it even worse.
Totally see that in a movie theater.
When they have the Apple Watch in another scene.
Right, it's stupid. Those were the two items I was like, what the hell is with these
That's
things?
so interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm glad you told me about the laughing in theaters. That totally makes sense.
Wow. This is
I did
a
not think about that
weird movie. Oh, there was one other question I was going to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
The pagan cult people. Yeah. Who would they be if you were making this movie today?
Yeah.
Who would the pagan cult people be? Or at least be representative of? I was wondering, like, are they, like, they're supposed to be the people against goodness and niceness.
You're right.
So, like, if you're going to take a real-life group, or at least base it on a real-life group, who would that be today? In today's Dragnet?
Like, whoever was running Enron. That's what I see.
It's just because my mind immediately went to, like, 4chan and Gamergate.
Interesting.
Or maybe
I
even
see
like
that. I assume more power though.
Well, maybe even like Anonymous then. And actually,
Yes, dude,
yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah,
because they
yeah.
got the masks.
Yep.
Obviously, they're not the Guy Fawkes masks.
Right.
But
No.
yeah, I wonder if you would make this movie today if it would be more about speaking to Anonymous or something like 8chan and 4chan.
Yeah.
And that's just like, oh, that's extra weird.
Did you watch True Detective?
I've seen the first season.
Yeah, so like they had similar type of
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And what were they doing? Was that church and high? It was church, right?
Yeah. It was another cult.
But power because they were running businesses or like getting.
Well,
land and shit?
I mean, what the whole movie is like broadly, thematically about the patriarchy, in that like the people in charge basically keep down women and are discriminatory.
Yeah.
And it's about the struggle of living within that system, which is why that movie's or that show is that at least that season, I haven't seen season 2, is so great because like it ends with like, oh, the stars are coming, the light is winning. It was all blackness. We're taking these incremental steps to making better, to throwing out these established systems. Oh God, if you want to watch a buddy cop movie, you know what? Police Navidad's fun, but go watch True Detective season 1. Man. Don't waste your time with Dragnet.
That's the good stuff right there.
Outside of watching it for this podcast and for your Tom Hanks collection, True Detective is way better.
It's like a much better version of two detectives going against a pagan society.
And the chemistry. Oh my God, we could talk about True Detective.
I know.
But it's not a Tom Hanks movie.
No.
Oh man, but yeah, that's an interesting parallel because the pagan, like the dark, real version of the pagans, is exactly the cult of the Yellow King.
Same mask and everything. They have the same like bullhorn.
Yeah. Oh, I'm getting
the card. Ugh.
I'm getting shivers. All right. If this Tom Hanks movie was an ice cream flavor.
This specific movie.
The Dragnet. If Dragnet was an ice cream flavor, what would it be?
Maybe like Rocky Road.
Rocky Road? Rocky Road? I feel like Rocky Road might be a little good for this movie. I mean,
what would you give it?
I'm not
a fan of
partial.
Rocky Road.
I'm
what
not
about
partial.
Rum Raisin?
Ooh, Rum Raisin.
It's got the CD in there.
Rum Raisin. Oh, that sounds like really mean toward this movie. But at the same time,
I'm super polar with my ice cream options.
That's true. Rocky Road isn't. I don't really like Rocky Road either, but.
You don't really hate this movie either, apparently.
You know what? This movie is kind of Rocky. Let's go with... I mean, although it should be Rocky Road to Perdition, so maybe we'll say that.
Good. Man, Ben and Jerry should hire you. I like that one. Oh, man. Rocky Road to Perdition. They should hire you now.
So, yeah, we got to come up with something else for this one. Oh, shit. What's Dragnet? It doesn't have to be a pun, but because that's the first one we've done.
That's the best.
Maybe Rum Raisin. Okay, so we ended on this movie. It's not good. It's not bad. So it's still ice cream. You can still eat it. So it's not like a freak flavor of ice cream. It's not like pickle or popcorn. Pickle and popcorn ice cream. That's ridiculous. No. So it's not that. It's
maybe it's the best flavor of frozen yogurt.
I like frozen yogurt.
Okay.
But I like where you're going. But but either way, it's still a Tom Hanks movie.
Okay.
So it's still ice cream.
Pay it proper respects.
Yes. No. If this was an ice cream flavor, I feel like it's something that would have. Oh, what's that one? There's like one that has like potato chips. It's like the Jimmy Fallon one or something.
Oh.
I'm not gonna single out the Jimmy Fallon one specifically because I don't know if I've had that version, but I've had ice cream where it's like potato chips are in it. And it's like, what are we doing, guys?
It's not. Yeah, it's too much.
There's an ice cream flavor where there's like potato chips and almonds and maybe like a little chocolate swirl, but it's vanilla ice cream. It's like all these things are great, but they've been done better in other ice creams.
Yeah, this is good. I like
all right,
that.
We're gonna go with it's like the Jimmy Fallon late night potato chip bullshit ice cream.
Although the Stephen Colbert one is really good.
Americone Dream. That's a different category.
This is the Jimmy Fallon of ice cream.
Yes. Which we'll get into more depth on the Jimmy Fallon podcast. Fallon, love with you. Heart and soul.
Tom Hanks, we fell in love with you, Tom Hanks. Just like so many do deeply, because you made us smile, and your great on-screen style. So that's why we give thanks, 'cause you've got a friend in Tom Hanks.